One of the most profound things I've learned in my life is that it's actually not about my hair at all. I've spent a lifetime trying to cover up who I am. And as much as I love a good external transformation, and I do, I much more love a heart transformation. Join me as I share how I work to heal my heart, find happiness, and embrace our hair. Hey guys, welcome back to It's Not About Your Hair, where we talk all things hair, heart, and happiness. Hey, today I am in a hotel room. I'm traveling, teaching a class, and the guys who normally help me at AZ Business Solutions with my podcast are not going to be happy that I don't have my normal microphone and lighting, but I thought it would be better to go without perfection and get some episodes in versus waiting until the moment's right, which takes me into exactly our topic today. I was inspired on my drive here to Indianapolis, listening to podcasts myself and being encouraged about the idea of the authentic self or imposter syndrome and things that get in our way. And I talk about this, all the time, you guys. I am always trying to reach for that next uh, thing that we could get to if we weren't doubting ourselves, reaching for what is that opportunity? What is the thing that I was made for? What is the thing that's going to set my soul on fire? And I listened to a podcast on the way here, and it reminded me of the idea that we really do. We don't have to search outside of ourselves. And I've talked about this before, but we're going to go into it a little bit deeper. We don't have to search outside of ourselves for what we want or are supposed to do with our lives. We are born with a desire, with a passion, with a plan in us, given to us, I think, by God, as He put us together for our purpose here on this planet during our life. Now, what happens is we spend way too much time, and I'm guilty of it, listening to other people, wondering what other people who literally aren't living our lives are going to think about us, and being concerned about other people's business instead of our own. We're worried about looking stupid. We're worried about taking the risk. I have been guilty of not stepping out because, and I'm sure that every single person feels this way, but I'm going to say it. I live in a small town, and in that small town, I've talked about this before. Uh, I was a mess in my younger years. And you guys, I don't hold people to who they were when they were young, but as a human race, we do. We hold people to who they were at one point in their life. And I still, every once in a while, get nervous when I see people and wonder what they think about me based on who I was at 15, 16, 17, or 18. And I think I worried more about putting my podcast out and talking about these things from my heart. I think I worried more about probably the 9 people in my own town who probably don't even listen to my podcast versus knowing that there was something inside of me that I was called to share. And that's what led me to this moment is overriding the self-doubt or the imposter syndrome and stepping into your plan. And so here we are taking one brave step at a time. And I really want to encourage you guys to think about what was the thing? What is the thing that gets you the most excited? And I'm thinking about this right now because I'm here in Indianapolis teaching a class. And it was just a dream a few years ago that I would be teaching and traveling and meeting new people. And again, I've talked about this on other episodes, but diving a little bit deeper, I think I was afraid because the class that I specifically love to teach is called Cultivating Confidence Behind Your Chair, Curl Confidence Behind Your Chair. And yes, I talk about curly hair, and yes, we're going to go into Innersense Organic Beauty. But what I love talking about is connecting our our brain and our heart, because most people, even hairstylists, so this isn't specifically just for, I mean, the classes, but this podcast isn't for hairstylists. All of us are afraid to do something we've never done before. And the reason we're afraid of it, like I said earlier, is because we're afraid that we're going to suck at it. Guess what? You're going to suck at it. Because when we do something new, we're going to suck. The important thing is pushing past that and knowing that it's a step to who you want to be. So I've talked about this. I did a whole podcast on it. The difference between courage and confidence is a lot of people never make it out of acquiring skills because they're afraid of what it might mean if they put themselves out there and they fail. And then you want to get bigger or do something more than, and it doesn't matter. Like, for example, if you just want to be a hometown hairstylist and you want to just do that for the rest of your life, but you're still afraid to post your pictures on social media of your before and afters because you're afraid that somebody might say something. They might. They're going to. But you never know who you're missing that's your client that needs you if you're afraid to just put yourself out there. And it gets bigger as you go bigger. So if you have a dream to open your own business, it gets more complicated, or the imposter syndrome or the ego flares up more because you're putting yourself out in front of more people. So the more you take these brave steps, the more you're going to have self-doubt until you learn to take those thoughts captive. So one of my favorite scriptures is that we take our thoughts captive and hold them ransom unto the Lord. So whether you're a believer or not, I talk about that a lot, or not, the truth is the same. When we have self-doubt or a negative thought or something awful that pops into our brain, we can override that if we turn it into something else. So what happens with negative thoughts is usually we let them roll around until they beat us up. So a negative thought comes into my head. For example, I get what's inside of me. So what's inside of me is you're going to be an educator. You're going to teach people all over the world to embrace their authentic self. That is what I believe. And I only can do that as me through my authentic experience. I can't teach you from somebody else's experience or it will sound ridiculous because it won't be me. But the minute I think, you know what? I have something to share with the world. And you say something like that. The first thing that comes into my head is, what are you, a freaking nut job? What do you, Casey Voss from Owasso, Michigan, have to share with the world? You are a mess. And it wants to tell me all the things that little meanie inside my head wants to say. You barely graduated high school. You who had a baby when you were 19. You who have had a salon walkout. You who have closed multiple salons. And what can happen is that we sit in that and we continue to let it punch us around. You. Or we can take that thought captive. So the Bible has great advice. I would read it just as a consumer. Maybe you'll become a believer, but it has great advice. Take those thoughts captive and hold them ransom, or change. Believe that we can transform our thinking. So for me, I take that thought captive and I say, you're a freaking liar. It's not true. Yes, I was a teenager who struggled really hard. And then I tell myself the truth. And you had great reason. Life was pretty hard. And you made a lot of bad choices. But look at you now. You're doing great. Or I'm like, oh my gosh, I was a teenage mom. I bet all those people who think about that. Are you kidding me? My teenage momism? I have a 23-year-old daughter with a master's degree who helps other people. She's a social worker who helps people. That wasn't a failure. That was a huge success. And whether or not she had a master's degree or not, she's an incredibly beautiful human being. And you know what? I made a lot of mistakes raising her. Guess what? She's still an incredibly beautiful human being. And having her when I was just a little one myself has made me an incredibly beautiful human being. It's taught me a ton about judging other people and where they're at in their process and not letting them be there. Okay. So this is what I mean. We take these thoughts captive and we say, this is not true. I am also Awesome. Or can they both be true? Yes, I did do that. But yes, I am also on this other path. So we have to take these thoughts captive and we have to tell them something else. I think that we have this opportunity to transform our way of thinking if every time we can recognize it quicker and we don't go into the spin of usually one negative thought about ourselves will take us to I'm not going to do the thing I'm dreaming about because I'm a failure. And I want to give you a little bit of quick advice really close is that no one's going to be meaner to you than you are. That's the absolute truth. There might be a couple of I have never had anyone that I personally know ever say anything meaner to me than I've said to myself. Now, there's been maybe a couple of mean comments on the internet, but I really don't even, I haven't gotten those yet. I've been very lucky. A couple of people didn't like how I chewed gum or the way I said words, but literally nothing awful. And I put myself out there every day. And I talk about dumb stuff that doesn't seem to matter, but I know that it matters because it matters to me. So I talk about these cute little fake kind of freckles, and I talk about day 6 hair, and I talk about imperfect curls, and I talk about raising kids, and I talk about struggling in marriage, and I talk about dreaming bigger than you ever could have. And I talk about my thrift finds, which I'm gonna show you guys because I stopped at a thrift store. This was maybe it's God, the universe, I don't really care, but you guys know I love thrifting. I got off on an exit on the way here by random chance to go to the bathroom, and there was a Goodwill, and it said to me, "You should come inside." And I wanted to say, "No, I gotta get there." And I'm like, "Why? Why do I gotta get here?" And so I stopped and I found the most wonderful treasures. So this is what I mean about all the while, if we're looking for the clues around us, our life is happening for us. There are things all around you pointing you to your next stop. You just have to slow down long enough to listen to them. You have to stop and say, I'm worth the stop. You are worthy of being seen for who you are. You're not too much. You're not more than and maybe you are too much. But that also comes out of insecurity. And as we work and believe that our path is leading us to the next step, we'll continue to grow and change. And we'll sit into our confidence. And so the imposter syndrome, I think, comes on mostly when we're not being ourselves or when we listen to the false self tell us that we're not good enough or we even more than listen to the false self, we listen to the fear of what we think other people will think about us, which probably will never happen. And, you guys, I'm not a celebrity. I just have, maybe, 700 people that subscribe to my podcast. And out of the 700, very few of you listen to the whole thing, because the algorithms tell me. Does it stop me from doing it? Heck no, because at least every gal darn week that the podcast comes up, you guys, someone messages me. I get a message from somebody, and this is what keeps me going. Somebody sends me a message, sometimes really, really profound. I got a message last week from a perfect stranger. My podcast last week, and I filmed these out in advance, so this won't be it, but was on my marriage. And a perfect stranger messaged me and shared what a hard season she's in and what a struggle it's been and how helpful it was to her to keep going. And do you guys know that just like you, a lot of times I don't want to share these stories or I think it's so stupid or the better one is that right after I film an episode of the podcast on how I'm learning to be a better helper to my husband and my husband needs respect and I need to encourage him more. We get into a weird stupid fight where I'm not encouraging. And then guess what? That little meanie in my head says, "See, you're a fake. You're a fraud. Don't listen to the bee. Don't listen to her because it's not true." You guys, it turned that right around when she started talking to me. And I went and gave my husband a little pat on the butt and told him, "Good job, go team." Like, you are not being fake because you're having setbacks. You're not fake because you're not perfect. You're a human. having a human experience. And you might as well be honest about it and share it with others, because what I have learned is if I continue to walk out into what God has called me to, and I'm not afraid of what I say to me or what you might say to me, but I trust that what I have to say is going to help at least one person, then it's all worth it. And if we're totally honest, we're all trying to make a living too. Do I hope that the podcast becomes something so fabulous that you guys want to join me somewhere on a tour while we talk about healing our hair, heart, and happiness together somewhere? Well, yes, I do. Do I hope that you'll all subscribe to my page and leave me a 5-star review and tell all of your friends about me? Of course I do. But as equally much as I wish for all of that, I hope that you start your podcast if that's the dream that's in you. And you don't compare it to my podcast or somebody who has a really, really great super following or a million views, because they had to get there somewhere. And I guarantee they messed up along the way, because that's what happens. You do not come close. You cannot get there without going there. Do you understand? You might take a wrong turn even today. Listen, in Indianapolis, there are 775 roundabouts to get anywhere. I live in Owasso. I think we have a roundabout. Now, I've been on them because I'm a traveling woman now. But when you get that many in a row, I don't know what the third turn is. GPS, I don't know. And I went around it 3 times, and that's fine because I still got here. But I made a mistake along the way. I took a wrong turn. And instead of panicking and swearing and flipping the people off next to me, I realized that I just made a wrong turn. I didn't listen to the directions, and I had to turn around. And guess what? I got here. Here I am with you. So that was the point today, is that don't stop going forward because of what you're saying to yourself or what you're freaking worried that some person you don't know is going to say to you. You absolutely have born with a purpose that only you can do. Only you. And the world's waiting for you. It's waiting for me. And I'm glad to be here. And I hope someday we look back on this podcast and you're like, I can't believe she filmed that without a microphone in her hotel room. And we're like, that was so awesome because it's genuine. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. You can have all the fancy equipment, but it can't be from your heart, and it can be totally dumb and pointless. Not dumb and pointless. I shouldn't have said that. If it's authentically you, then it's worth it. Anyways, I hope that today, as always, you know that you're going to be okay. If you don't feel okay, if you're in a tough season, I hope you know that you maybe just have to take the third turn on the roundabout to get out of the trouble. That you take the thoughts captive. That you change the narrative. That when the bully comes in and says, look at you, you suck, you go, nope, I used to, but I don't anymore. And when you make a mistake, after you're talking about how you're making victories, you remember it's just a mistake. It's just one turn off the roundabout. Just get back on. And I hope that you know that you're worthy of love and that I'm so glad you're here. Okay? Have a great day. I guess this is where I ask you to subscribe to my channel, to follow me on social, and to listen wherever podcasts can be found. And join me every Tuesday at 2 as we unpack how to heal your hair, your heart, and your happiness.